Hello, Broadway fans. It's your favorite Broadway duo here at Gold Derby, Sam Eckmann and my friend David Buchanan. And this crazy whirlwind of a spring season is finally come to an end, David. We've reached the apex here. We've seen, all the shows have been seen by critics, by audiences, and we're finally about to unveil the 2024 Tony nominations. So there's still a lot to figure out and a lot I'm confused by. So let's dive in and see if we can figure this out. I think there's no better place to start than what is still the most confusing category, I think, which is Best Musical. Uh, what are your what's your lineup here for five? Have you figured it out?
I have gotten to a place that I'm fairly comfortable. I wouldn't say I figured it out, but I'm feeling better about it now than when we last talked about it. So this is my five. I have Suffs, Illinoise, Hell's Kitchen, The Outsiders, and Here Lies Love. Um, what do your five look like?
We have the same five. I guess my order is slightly
Wow.
different. I am starting to feel pretty secure about Suffs, Illinois, and Hell's Kitchen.
Yes.
It makes me nervous because they love to reward things with original scores, especially with a win, and the fact that two of them are in there that are pre-existing scores, which is Illinois and Hell's Kitchen, is very nerve-wracking to me, especially in a season with so many original musicals. But I think the response to both of those has been extremely positive, and they both feel very unique. So I'm putting those in there with Suffs. And then I have Here Lies Love and The Outsiders in fifth. Um, and I kind of don't like the closed shows are kind of throwing me for a loop. Like when we saw, I know they're not
Yeah.
precursors in the way that like film and TV have precursors, but for instance, the Outer Critics Circle really went for Days of Wine and Roses really hard. That was well reviewed. But I'm not sure, are they really going to put two closed shows in? Like I'm not even 100% on Here Lies Love. But then when you look further down, it's kind of like that fifth place slot. I was deciding between like The Outsiders, The Notebook, and Water for Elephants. I feel like all have really equal standing right now for
Yeah.
the fifth place. If there was one that you're going to take out, who would you swap it with?
I think, believe it or not, Wine and Roses. I just think, I think for me, The Outsiders is kind of on par with The Notebook and, like you said, maybe even Water for Elephants, which was better reviewed. But I feel like those are all kind of, as you said, on equal footing. Days of Wine and Roses had excellent reviews, and I know maybe we don't see eye to eye on this exactly, but I really liked it. And it would probably make my top five, and that's what I'm grappling with is like, do I listen to my gut saying this was one of my favorite five of the year and put it in, or the fact that it's closed, the fact that I think Here Lies Love is potentially stronger as one of the closed shows, how many nominations is it going to get? That's why I'm hesitating, but Wine and Roses is kind of in my, maybe my sixth slot jockeying to get in. What would be your, if you're going to bump something out for something else, what are you slotting in?
Oh, well, that's hard because I'm also going with what I I'm feeling like what I personally love, which I really enjoyed The Notebook quite a bit. It really surprised me. So I feel like that would be, the emotion behind that story and the way it grabs the audience and just makes you feel really good at the end is a really powerful factor when it comes to awards. But that the kind of like personal likes and dislikes are really hard to deal with, especially because we have to remember these nominations are not decided by the full body of, some 800 Tony voters. These are just the nominators, which starts out as 60, but there will inevitably be people who have to recuse themselves. So we're probably going to end up, I think it's probably going to be like low 50s who are deciding this. And when you have a pool that small, like individual tastes can really come through in a smaller voting pool. So it's really hard to figure out. I've talked to many people in the industry who loved Days of Wine and Roses or hated Days of Wine and Roses or say they respected it, admired it more than really fell in love with it.
Yeah.
So because I've had those conversations with people who like respect it more than they say loved it, plus it's closed, I'm putting it in like a Bridges of Madison County category where it gets acting, it gets in for score, but it can't quite make the cut for best musical. But I'm also that makes me scared to predict Here Lies Love because I unabashedly love Here Lies Love. I think it's an incredible piece of theater, but I'm also very down for, like dancing in a disco club and having being a musical. And I remember like being there on a press night and seeing all the press sitting up in the mezzanine thinking like, are they going to have the same experience, the same narrative experience that is so powerful down on the dance floor when they're sitting up there? I don't know. I didn't choose that option to sit in a normal seat. So it's all quite confusing, but I at least feel confident about the top three, I think, for
Yes.
Suffs, Illinois, and Hell's Kitchen. Are we on the same page with those at least?
Totally. Those are my top three in that order. So I think those are really very secure based on the reviews, based on, what we've experienced, if and when we've seen them, I feel really good about those three.
All right. Well, I think this is just going to be a crapshoot for the bottom two. So let's move on to revival because we have a lot of categories to cover here. Musical revival. I am There's only six candidates here, so four slots. So I have Merrily We Roll Along, which I think is very far out front. The Who's Tommy, Cabaret, or Cabaret the Kit Kat Club, if you will, as well as Gutenberg the musical. What are your four?
I have the same four, and I feel very good about them. But I do think, post Cabaret opening, to your point, Merrily has a significant advantage in terms of the win. But I feel good about those four, very confident.
Yeah, I think the issue with Cabaret, I always knew it was going to have more of an uphill battle here versus London because New York audiences, we like had the Sam Mendes revival and then the restaging of that revival just not that long ago. It's not ancient history, which many people here like consider the definitive version. So there was always a higher bar here, and people were always going to have certain expectations going in. So I know a lot of people aren't picking Gutenberg because it's closed, and maybe The Wiz is their pick instead, or even Spamalot, which had so many, Broadway veterans in it. But I feel like Gutenberg was so popular and they kept themselves in, at least like social media attention with the guest producer. I think it's strong enough to get in. Even if it doesn't get anything else, I think it will be here.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's move on to some acting categories. Lead actress in a musical has become I thought I had this category figured out at the start of the season, and I don't anymore. Uh I feel like Kelly O'Hara is the safest person here. I don't necessarily think she is going to win. She could. Um but I'm going with Kelly O'Hara, Days of Wine and Roses, Marianne Plunkett, The Notebook, Malia Joy Moon, Hell's Kitchen, Shayna Taub, Suffs, and Eden Espinosa for Lempicka.
Okay.
What five do you have here?
I'm pretty close to yours, and I need your help on. We really need to talk this out because I there's somebody I need to get in, and I don't know who to drop. So I agree. I have Kelly, I have Malia, I have Marianne Plunkett, I have Eden. I still have Gail Rankin, and this is where I'm deciding between. I want to put Shayna Taub in. She wrote the book and the score for Suffs. She's the lead in Suffs. She's really great in it. I don't know who to slot her in for. Drop Eden or Gale. So that's my dilemma. And as a result, I haven't put Shayna in yet. Um,
Hmm.
I think there are kind of, merits to why either Eden or Gale could get nominated. And I just don't know like which is going to outweigh, the other. So you've dropped Gale. So how do you kind of see those kind of last slots shaking out?
Oh, it's tough. I mean, I think I put Eden in instead because she's just doing so much in Lempicka, even though Lempicka did not get raves, across the board with reviews, but I just feel like she just goes through so much. She's singing the crap out of the score. It's just a really, really demanding role. And even if Lempicka, it's fallen down in our odds a bit, even if it's not as strong as it was going into the season and maybe is only going to get a couple nominations, that's happened before when like, Scandalous was not a well-reviewed show. But everyone loved Carolee Carmello, and they're like, even though we don't necessarily love this show, we so have respect for what you're doing, and what you're doing needs recognition. And with Eden, like she's coming back to Broadway after so many years away. This is a huge passion project for her. I think voters often respond to that kind of thing. And I think they've done a really good job. It was smart of them to put the music out there because I feel like Woman Is has become such a like anthem this season and one of the most recognizable new songs of this season. So that's why I'm giving her an edge. I don't think she's guaranteed, but I do think she just has an edge there. Um, versus, Gail again had those expectations coming in with the Cabaret we all knew and loved, with Natasha Richardson, who won the Tony. Sally is not always a character that gets an actress a Tony nomination. um, and I don't know, it's a tough call. I do feel like she is still very competitive, but I felt like Eden and Shayna are more competitive than her just because of the divisive reaction to Cabaret. And I think Shayna, the acting nomination is the least likely of the three. Like if Shayna's not going to get, because she's potentially getting score, book, and actress. If one of those is going to fall out, it would be actress. Um, but it's a great character. I think a demanding character, and they will probably respect that she has done all three of these things in a musical that is bound to be nominated for Best Musical.
Yeah, I agree. That's helpful in a way. I
Sorry, I just like,
no, it's
talked
very
about them all, but
no, that's it's great. It's just that one, I really am I know I'm gonna put Shayna in. So if you're watching this and you're making your predictions, I do feel like she belongs, even though she's not in my lineup right now, I do feel like she belongs in the top five. And I just have to figure out who to take out to put her in. So stay tuned, watch as we continue to make until Tuesday morning.
and I will say there's, we're just talking about these six women, but there's other like, a lot of people are predicting Water for Elephants getting into Best Musical, and if that gets into Best Musical, then you probably are predicting Izzy McCalla for that lead. Like there's definitely potential that I think a surprise happens here that we're not really thinking about, but I don't want to go down the road because I've already like solidified things in my mind. If we move over to lead actor, this is the question mark here after both Marianne Plunkett and Dorian Harewood moved lead is, does that help or hurt them? And this is where I had Dorian missing, even though I had him firmly in my featured actor predictions. So I have Jonathan Groff for Merrily We Roll Along, Brian Darcy James for Days of Wine and Roses, Chip Zien for Harmony, Ali for The Who's Tommy, and Eddie Redmayne in Cabaret. Do
Yeah,
we match?
we do. Same five. Different placement on some of them. Same five. And I feel really good about the five. The only one that I am thinking about if I had room was Brody Grant for The Outsiders. Just because I do
Hmm.
do well in a lot of places. I think, versus our odds, I do think it's better than, most folks are expecting. And I just don't know, again, who I would drop to put him in. So I feel good about this five, especially because, Tommy was so well reviewed. Ali is so great in that role. I think the big question is with Cabaret, the Tony nominators don't really care about big snubs. Like they're willing to snub folks and take us by surprise. So, does Eddie Redmayne potentially miss?
I mean, just ask Denzel Washington, right?
Yeah.
So they definitely can snub people. I know I think a lot of people when The Outsiders came out and they started loving that, put Brody Grant in over Ali Lewis Borsky, or Borsky, whichever the pronunciation is, sorry. But I feel like, I don't know. Ali to me is just such a presence even when he's not doing anything on stage, and that's what is so impressive to me about it. And the like, I also, maybe this is because I saw Dune 2 like the day before, but he's giving me very much Paul Atreides vibes. Like and it's kind of like this grand fable, like Dune is, especially where he gets these massive followers, and I just like his presence as he's, just standing there as like, yes, Muad'Dib, I will follow you into the desert. We will destroy the Harkonnens together. So I just feel like it's makes enough of an impact for him to get in. But there is often that one. I don't know that both him and Brody will
Yeah.
get in. And I know lots of people have put in Jeremy Jordan when The Great Gatsby started getting in front of audiences. Do you think he has a shot?
Potentially. I mean, I totally get the rationale behind the prediction. I'm just going for, I think, shows that were either better reviewed or performers that were better reviewed, like a Brody, for example, who I really want to, put in. I'm thinking about, even if The Outsiders didn't get universal, great notices, he got really great notices. So that's the kind of thing where, it's, I do think there's maybe three or four folks, for that last slot again. And like you said, I'm kind of like, I don't want to tinker with it too much because once it's like a Jenga, tower, right? Once you take somebody out, the whole category comes kind of crashing down. So I feel pretty confident with the five that we have.
Okay, well, if we're confident, then let's move on. That's where I should have ended. So, featured actress in a musical. If we look at that, I have another Merrily actor out front. So I have Lindsay Mendez for Merrily We Roll Along, BB Newirth in Cabaret, and then the double header of Shoshana Bean and Keisha Lewis of Hell's Kitchen, and Jen Colella from Suffs.
Okay.
What does yours look like?
A bit different. So I've got Lindsay out front as well for Merrily. I have BB Newirth as well. I still have Leslie Rodriguez Kritzer in the lineup. I do think, Spamalot was fairly well received. I know it's closed, but her performance in particular was raved about. Folks love her in the industry, and I feel like it'll be remembered somewhere. So I'm okay with that. I do have Keisha Lewis as well, and then this is a placement like you have too. Like you have Jen Colella. I do think Suffs is getting someone in here, and I'm opting for Nikki M. James, past Tony winner, who I thought was really terrific in Suffs. So that's my five. I think we've got two different there. I don't know. I think Shoshana Bean is a good call, and she is coming off of a recent Tony nomination too. So I'm hesitating about, do I slot her in or not? And who was the other one that we don't overlap on?
Did you have Keisha Lewis from
I
Hell's
do have
Kitchen?
Lewis, yeah.
And BB and Jen Colella.
I don't have Jen. I have Nikki instead of Jen for
Got it.
stuff. Which is just
So
there are so many suffragists. We could
that's the hard thing. Well, both there's you could put multiple Suffs women in here. There's also like Grace McLean and Hannah Cruz who are wonderful. Even Emily Skinner, she doesn't have that much. There, she only has like that one big song, but it's beautiful. But I think Jen Colella to me just, had the most material and just is such a massive presence in this. I think I would argue she's like the next biggest character aside from Shayna Taub. So that's why I had her in here. She is a past Tony nominee. But it pained me to I took out Leslie Kritzer, who I love, but it just felt like Spamalot now seems a bit of, far further back in the memory banks. And we've had so many, just between Hell's Kitchen and Suffs, uh, there's so many more recent women who you could make an entire category with just those two musicals, and everyone would be very deserving. Um, and I think I have Shoshana Bean. I actually moved her up to third because she is just like showcasing, I think, the best singing she's ever done in her life, which is saying something because she's Shoshana freaking Bean. Uh, and she just sounds incredible. She just basically throws a rock concert in the middle of the show. Oprah gave her a standing ovation, started leading a standing ovation during the middle of the show, and she saw it. And it's like the kind of singing where like Mr. Saturday Night was her first Tony nomination, and she sounded great in that, but it wasn't the kind of like showcase piece of a song that we know she can do. And this is like that's what Hell's Kitchen is for her. And Keisha Lewis also just has these incredible moments where you totally fall for that character. So I have both of them in there. But I'm also like she's really down in her odds now, but I feel like there's still a chance for Joy Woods. She
Yeah.
just has had such buzz around her, especially going back to like when she took over as Audrey in Little Shop off Broadway. Uh she just feels like the new it girl. One of them, there's a few this season, but she really has a lot of buzz around her, so I wouldn't be shocked if she's surprised
Yeah,
and got in there somehow.
I wouldn't either. I mean, I think she has the best or one of the best numbers in the Notebook, My Days, which is just, I mean, it's like the 11 o'clock number. It's the kind of emotional, one of the emotional climaxes. That show has many, great
Hmm.
emotional beats. But when you see that performance, I think it really is so memorable that yeah, she's probably in my sixth right now, and I'd like to get her, higher and get her into my five. I just don't know again who I would drop. So let's hope we see some ties this year with so many great contenders in all these categories. Let's hope we get like six folks in this lineup.
Yeah, and I think these very fluid categories where there's not like a solid consensus on the five are the places where we would see that. And speaking of fluid, I think featured actor in a musical is maybe the most fluid of them all. Uh, I don't know that our odds display that, but I think this is a crazy category. So I have Daniel Radcliffe, Paul Alexander Nolan for Water for Elephants, Ricky Ubeda from Illinois, Steven Skybell for Cabaret, and Conrad Ricamora for Here Lies Love. What
Oh,
you got?
I've got Daniel as well, of course. I have Conrad as well. I have Steven as well. I think that's our overlap. I have Brandon Victor Dixon for Hell's Kitchen, and then I'm really going out on a limb for Joshua Boone for The Outsiders. I'm kind of, I'm putting a lot of chips in on The Outsiders in select categories. I just feel like that's another cast that has a lot of great featured ensemble members, and he just stands out so much. He's got that number at the very end of the show, Little Brother. I walked away from that show thinking about him so much. Uh,
Mm.
so I'm kind of, going out on a limb for him. I really hope it happens. And, it might not if The Outsiders is maybe doesn't perform as well as I'm expecting it to. But yeah, there are so many folks that you could put in here, including some that you have that I would like to have, and I don't. So I don't
Well, I
know.
think Joshua Boone, did he just get a Drama League nomination? Was that where he showed up? He did show up somewhere.
Yes, he did.
So it's not a crazy limb to go out on. I think he does have, out of the featured men in that show, has a huge impact. I guess I threw Ricky Ubeda in for Illinois just recently after seeing it. He's the most central figure, and I think people are really going to fall in love with that show. And there have been, dance characters before that are just strictly dance that have gotten in, like Karen Ziemba in Contact and Corinne Plantadide in Come Fly Away. So it's not out of the ordinary, or there is precedent for it. Um, I guess I'm most worried. He's second in our odds for this, but I'm most worried about Conrad Ricamora. I hope I don't have to be, but it just makes me nervous because it's now so far away since Here Lies Love. But I'm banking on the fact that he also has Oh Mary off Broadway,
Hmm,
and is really great in that, so that he will have stayed in voters' minds.
good point.
Um, is there anyone outside of your five that you think has like a chance to break through in a surprise?
Let's look quickly. I think Ricky is a good call. I do think Illinois, if we think it's as strong as a best musical contender as it is, I do think it will probably get, more nominations than our odds are predicting. So that's a great call. Um, I don't know. I've been watching the odds really closely all season, and the person who's in and out the most is Roger Bart. Like, folks keep adding him back in their five, and then he just slips out, and then he comes back in, and he just slips out. I think in addition to the design categories, one of the Back to the Future featured actors, might
Mm.
get in here. So I'm watching out for that. Maybe I'm not confident that that's going to happen as a spoiler, but just kind of flagging that. How about you? Anybody else?
Yeah, Roger is a good one to keep an eye on because, he's like a Broadway favorite and it's a highly physical role. He's, working his butt off every night for sure. So that could happen. The other one I'm looking at is he's all the way down towards the bottom of our odds because there was just a recent change, but Michael Urie, I think he's down
Yeah.
at 101 to odds because that character we had him in the lead category, but they went against precedent because the original Spamalot had three men in lead. This one only has two. But it's interesting that he's in featured because he is a pretty sizable role in that. And right off of Spamalot, he immediately went into Once Upon a Mattress, where he was absolutely hysterical. So like another, you know, chance for him to show the theater community his comedy chops and, stay in people's minds. So I don't know if I'm going to throw him into my five, but there's definitely a chance that he could break in just because he now has this like really massive role in the featured category. So the odds are probably incorrect there. He does not belong way down at the bottom for sure. So if you're
39.
looking, yeah, if you're out there looking for a surprise and like predicting surprises, go ahead and grab Michael Urie at 100 to 1 odds. Um, well, let's look at the directors of these musicals. What do you have for your director lineup?
Okay, director, I've got Maria Friedman, Merrily, Lee Silverman for Suffs, Alex Timbers, Here Lies Love. I'm going out on a limb for Danya Tamor for Outsiders. And then way down in my ranking, and maybe on the way out, is Rebecca Frecknell for Cabaret. How does that compare to your five?
I have Maria Friedman, Merrily We Roll Along, Justin Peck, Illinois, Alex Timbers, Here Lies Love, Lee Silverman, Suffs, and Danya Tamor, The Outsiders. And I did just take Rebecca Frecknell from Cabaret out, so she is not in my lineup anymore. I just think that production is really divisive, and I don't, in this competitive of a race, sometimes it's too much to overcome. I think, but that said, the only person I now feel confident about is Maria Friedman for
Yeah.
Merrily We Roll Along. I think any of the other four that I have could miss. Um, Justin Peck, I think Illinois is going to be huge, but will they give him both choreography and direction, or are they just going to view him? Are they just going to focus on the dance? I think he'll get into director, but that's not slam dunk. Alex Timber, Here Lies Love. Are they going to go back? Like they should go back because what he did was a massive achievement. But again, it's a closed show. It has been gone for a long time now. I think Lee Silverman does a wonderful job, but it is not the most like a high concept of the musicals out there. So that makes her a little bit vulnerable. And then Danya Tamor is a newer face to the Broadway scene anyway. And I think some of the big scenes, some people could point towards choreography there. It's like a mix of staging and choreography. So sometimes, like, I think there might be voters who are like, well, maybe that's more of the choreographer's work than Danya's work. So it's crazy. And who I don't have at all is Michael Greif. That's the
Yeah.
real question I have is, do I throw Michael Greif in? But I don't know which one to do. I had him with Shelley Williams in The Notebook for a while in my last slot, but I took that out when I put some other folks in. And then the other one that the other two actually that I have a sneaking suspicion could get in and totally upend everything I'm predicting is Jessica Stone for Water for Elephants and Des McAnuff for The Who's Tommy, both of whom have gotten precursor nominations, I believe. Uh, Jessica Stone is a past nominee for Kimberly Kimbo. Des is a past winner. Um, I just feel like I'm like not paying attention to something important, but I don't know who to take out. Who would you take out if you had to?
I don't know. I want to answer a few of your questions. I think if Michael is going to get in, who's directed or co-directed three musicals this year, I think Hell's Kitchen is probably the one, just in terms of how
Yeah.
that is relative to the other projects he's done. So I would watch out for that. I think Jessica Stone is a good kind of flag because I'm underestimating Water for Elephants across the board. That's like partly a calculated decision and partly just because I just don't have room to put folks in, but that could do a lot better than I'm thinking. And that's a big show to wrangle. And, she's done a great job of it. And she's a past nominee. People really respect her in the industry. Who would you take out to put any of these folks in? I don't know. I mean, I do
That's
think
the problem.
I know.
Um,
I think the one that you flagged is Alex Timbers, who, like you said, if it had opened sooner or maybe hadn't closed as early, like we wouldn't be talking about that at all. I'm just wondering if I'm overestimating the residual support for that show. Um, I don't know, but and I think Danya too. I think she did a fabulous job with The Outsiders. Maybe the nominators aren't as keen on that show as I am, and she doesn't make it in. But it's kind of a Hope Diction slash. There's such great work in that show that I do think there's enough to get her in. So that's kind of my rationale.
yeah, the I think what I'm struggling with is that the one person I have in who, like a lot of times we talk about in awards, the most obvious work gets in. I think Suffs out of the five I have is like the least obvious directorial work. The other people have very high concept you know approaches to this material. It's like with Danya, you can just tell that that is a director's piece, that her imprint is very strong on it, which is not to say that Lee Silverman does a poor job in that by any means. I think she did amazingly with Suffs. I think it's going to win Best Musical. Um, and that's the struggle. Is like the thing I have in first place for Best Musical should get in uh, to director as well. And she did. She was one of the few people. I think there were only two Broadway directors to make it in for the Outer Critics Director Prize, and she was one of them over some more high concept directorial efforts. And so that's my struggle is like, well, if they're going for most obvious, then Lee would be the most vulnerable here, and I should put in Michael Greif for Hell's Kitchen. But I also can't take her out because she's like, she does really strong work and she's directing my front runner right now. So I don't know what to do.
I think I feel better about Lee Silverman than you do, just because I think of all the musicals that I've seen this year, and I haven't seen all the eligible shows yet, but of all the musicals I've seen, I think Suffs is across the board the most competent. Like, not only, my favorite in a lot of ways, but also like the most competently um composed, the most competently kind of written, the most competently directed. Like, yes, maybe the kind of concept is not as obvious. I totally agree with you on that point, that it's not the showiest of work, but I also think the kind of invisibility of her staging is one of its strengths. And then you get
Mhm.
moments like the march. I mean, I know we have to move on, but we get moments like the march where she creates actual, like, such forward momentum with the way she moves all of these suffragists around the stage. I just think there are moments that stand out in my memory of, oh yeah, that was really well staged. So I feel okay about Lee. And I think
Yeah,
we
you're
both
right.
have Suffs out front. I find it hard to believe if she doesn't get in, then I have to seriously reconsider if that's going to win Best Musical.
Yeah. That's why I'm just have like sneaking suspicions that my whole category is going to be wiped out, except for
Yeah.
Maria Friedman. She's
Yeah.
really the only one I feel safe for at the moment.
And she'll probably win.
Um,
Feel good about her
yeah,
win.
probably. Well, let's move on to the director's frequent collaborators, best choreography.
Yeah.
I have Illinoise, The Who's Tommy, Hell's Kitchen, The Outsiders, and Water for Elephants.
Okay. Pretty close match. There's one in here that I have that you don't, that I probably will drop anyway. So I have Illinois out front for sure. I have The Outsiders. I have Hell's Kitchen. I have Tommy. And I'm still holding on to Cabaret, which, I don't know. I think my perception of it is being skewed by the reviews of the show. And I don't know. I mean, there are other shows that I could put in there that I might want to, but so that's my shakiest of the five, but I feel pretty good about the other four.
Yeah, I took Cabaret out because there's the reaction, but there's also like there's just a smaller ensemble in that space, which doesn't mean the choreography is bad by any means. It's very effective choreography for the most part, but there's usually not more than like I think six or seven ensemble dancers on stage, which just like in your memory, if you're going back through all the shows thinking about dance, those really big numbers are going to make an impact. Like the Rumble in The Outsiders makes an enormous impact. All that like high energy dancing in The Who's Tommy and the major crowd pleasers in Hell's Kitchen make a huge impact. Um, so that's why I feel like I have Cabaret just on the outside looking in. The one I'm shakiest on is Water for Elephants, but I have it in because the circus choreographer is also eligible with the main dance choreographer. And the circus in this is amazing. And I think they really wove dance and circus together quite effectively. But how many nominators are going to remember? I don't know if this is a category where each name appears on the ballot or not, because I think some of them they don't. And I don't know how many of them are going to remember uh, if they're considering both. There's a lot here. There's a lot of opportunity for surprises, though, I think. I mean, Here Lies Love is a dance party that you're in. I thought it was very effective choreography. The Great Gatsby has some huge dance numbers. They want to go way back to the like last summer, Once Upon One More Time. I know that's not really the, highbrow Tony Fair, but the dancing was amazing. And I think there is a sliver of a chance that the Hard and Rock and Roll could
Yeah.
even this could be like its one nomination, I think. It got pretty decent reviews, I would say.
It's
And
actually
a lot of
it
them called out dancing.
it's a great show. It's
Yeah,
really, and the choreography, Lauren Lataro is so great. She also has Tommy in this category, and I think Tommy is going to get in. So, possible she could get two nominations. They are so different. I mean, that's what's so great about
right.
she's done this season is, the shows and her choreography could not be more, distinct in the two.
Yeah, and I think she has never been nominated before. I feel like Tommy is her stronger
Yeah.
contender, but it just wouldn't. I mean, the Heart of Rock and Roll is just about having fun. It's not like trying to be, Hamilton or anything. It's just like have fun. And the choreography is a huge part of that. So I wouldn't count out a surprise there for that, but I just feel like Tommy is a little bit stronger overall.
Agreed.
Let's look at score, the all important best score
Oh boy.
category, because this, I know, this is also what's confounding my best musical predictions, because it is usually so tied to it. But I have Suffs, Here Lies Love, Days of Wine and Roses, The Outsiders, and Lempicka, which
Okay.
is two musicals that I'm not predicting for best musical. What are you looking at?
Pretty close. I have Suffs, Days of Wine and Roses, which I love. Here Lies Love, Lempicka, and I still have the Notebook. So here's my question. I think the Notebook score is actually really great. I think
Mhm.
the Outsider score has some phenomenal numbers in it, including that Great Expectations, which is one of my favorite songs of the whole season. And then I've seen recently in our top five in the odds, we're going to turn to plays in a moment. Stereophonic has incredible music in it. However, my problem is these are like genuine 70s folk rock songs, and they're excellent. Like I have a lot of those songs still in my head from seeing the show only once. But are they are the nominators going to consider that a musical score? Is it enough of a musical
Yeah,
score for them to actually nominate it over other potentially strong musicals? That's my biggest question. I don't think it's going to get in right now, but what say you?
I I don't. I've toyed with that a lot because I think we'll get to plays, but I think Stereophonic is one of the strongest shows of this season, period. Um, but unlike there have been plenty of other plays that have gotten nominated in this category, but when you think of those, like Angels in America got in here, that's something that was underscored almost the entire show. So it gives the show a musical identity and constant musical presence, even if it's not identifiable songs like Stereophonic has. If the category was best song, if there was like a best new
Yeah.
song of the season, I think Stereophonic would hands down
Yeah.
get in. But this is not a show that's underscored the whole time. There's, I think, what is it, like maybe five songs? I can't remember. It's a few, and there are
Yeah, oh, sorry,
along,
not to interrupt you. There's one complete song in it. I mean, they've written full songs, but there's
right.
only one complete song that we hear as an audience in the show.
Yeah, and it's the scenes with the songs are thrilling. Like my favorite scene when Sarah Pigeon has to like when her boyfriend puts her on the spot and reorchestrates her song, forces her to play the piano because she's bad at it. That's a thrilling theatrical moment. I don't know if just that one song is going to get them a Best Score nomination. I could feel differently. So I think what kind of makes this hard to predict is that a refrain I've heard across the season from many people in the industry is that, they're sitting and they're like, oh, this score was really beautiful. I really liked that. It helped tell the story, and I really enjoyed it while I was there watching the show. And then days later, they're like, I don't really remember the songs. I can't recall them in detail. That makes this category super hard to predict. Um, and that's just what I've heard from people for several shows throughout the year. So I'm kind of looking at what scores like, now I've like seen the whole season mostly at the same time as Tony voters will, or nominators will have. So like what is making the biggest impact? Like what songs am I still thinking about? I'm, still thinking about Suffs. Definitely a lot of stuff in there that's super memorable. Here Lies Love is full of hooks and catchy numbers. Days of Wine and Roses, I think, has a ton of, Adam Guettel is very well respected and just stands out from all the other scores. It's almost like an opera in a way. And then I think The Outsiders with Great Expectations and has a lot of, this folksy Americana vibe to it, which helps it stand out. And then I guess I'm going for Lempicka, which might be a crazy prediction because I don't have it a lot of other places. But again, they very smartly put music out there, and I think a couple of those songs have become really popular songs this season. And I do, it is one of, even if the show's not perfect, it does have one of the most memorable scores, I think. It does stay in your mind. It has a very distinct sound to it that helps tell the story.
So you've
So,
you've killed your darling, The Notebook, then, unfortunately.
well, I don't know. I don't know. I had to make room for things.
I know.
I loved The Notebook, but I don't know what to do in this category because I'm already like, even if I put in, if I change something, I kind of want to change it to something that I also think is getting into Best Musical.
Right.
But I have two jukebox or pre-existing scores in Best Musical, so like even The Notebook is not in my Best Musical predictions right now.
Yeah, me
So I
either.
don't know what to do. I do think The Notebook could get in. But I don't know.
I know.
What what would you swap in?
I have The Notebook still. The only so what I'm toying with is, do I drop either The Notebook or Lempicka for The Outsiders? That's my
Hmm.
that's my debate, because again, as I've been saying all video, I think The Outsiders is going to do well. And if I'm predicting it to get in like Best Musical, Best Director, Best Featured Actor, I'm not putting it in score. It feels wrong. So I just have to figure out. I have some, inconsistencies in my logic that I need to sort out, as usual.
It's an inconsistent year. It's really like this is the hardest I've ever found this category and this season to be.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at Best Book of a Musical. Let's see if this is any easier. It's not. Spoiler alert. This is actually, I lied. Best Book is what I think is the most ridiculous category. Because just like Best Director, I am confident about exactly one of them. I have Suffs, The Outsiders, Water for Elephants, The Notebook, and Hell's Kitchen.
Wow. Okay.
Confident about nothing. What do you, how does yours compare?
We're not that far off. I have Suffs, Hell's Kitchen, The Notebook, Days of Wine and Roses, which I do, I don't know if I feel strongly about, but I have a hunch that that's going to get in. And then I put in Illinoise. And I don't know, like we need to talk about this because I think they have a story credit. I don't know if they
Yeah,
technically
they do.
credit, but I do think the structure of putting that show together, coupled with the fact that it's Justin Peck plus Jackie Sibley's Drury, who is a Pulitzer Prize winner and just such a brilliant playwright. We've seen kind of surprises where, I don't know if a lot of people were predicting Lynn Nottage's book to get nominated for MJ, but she's a two-time Pulitzer winner, like one of the most brilliant American playwrights. Same with Jackie in terms of how brilliant she is. So that I just slotted that in, which means again, inconsistent me. I don't have the outsiders in my lineup for book, and that doesn't feel right because Adam Rapp is also a well-respected playwright. Just was nominated a couple years ago for The Sound Inside. Um, but I'm just going out on a bit of a hunch for Illinoise. Do you think that has any likelihood of getting nominated?
I do. I don't have both Days of Wine and Roses and Illinois.
Right.
Those are both missing from my lineup. Part of me feels like both of those need to be put in, which means I need to somehow take two things out of my lineup here, which I don't really know how to do. I think, you know, this season, what helps Illinois stand out so much to me is that this season is really like the year of the narrator for musicals, for better or for worse. I don't know if it's the most exciting dramatic choice for a script, but it is the year of the narrator. And Illinois found a way to like not have that. Not only is it just a dance piece, but it just feels like they found a way to kind of create this organic story out of this album, like a story where there wasn't one, uh, without like relying on any, you know, kind of pre-existing device. I guess maybe you could say the device they're using is that campfire storytelling, but it really kind of grows beyond that when it becomes Ricky Ubeda's story. It morphs into this new thing. Um, the question is, are they going to give something book that doesn't have any words to it? It
Mhm.
doesn't have any dialogue. That's what I'm hung up on. But I do think people really have fallen in love with this show. Um, so I'm going back and forth constantly because our Tony nominator is going to say, well, I do love this show, but everyone else had to create all this dialogue and link these songs together, build into a song and out of a song. You didn't have to do that with any words. It's all about structure, which is still a lot of work to do. There have been, things like Hamilton or Cats, which won Best Book that don't have any scenes. It's all about how you structure the story. So I guess it's not unprecedented, but it just does give me pause. Like, is it going to be that strong?
I don't know. It's a great question. The only other one, I don't know if there's anything else that in lower in the odds that you think could break through. I mean, I think those are really strong. We're talking about 7 different possibilities for our 5 slots. I would just flag another one you mentioned for a different category. Speaking of having to be clever with pre-existing material, if they want a fun musical, The Heart of Rock and Roll does a really nice job taking this Huey Lewis catalog, and it's not like an autobiographical musical. It's an original story that they weaved these songs into. Jonathan Abrams. I don't think that's getting in, but if they want like a respite from all of the sad musicals we've had this year,
Mhm.
it's just a clever, fun, genuinely funny at times book. So maybe.
And that is actually a good point because there's a lot of heavy subject
Yeah.
matter in some of these musicals this year. Like The Notebook has everyone crying. It like brings you through a catharsis at the end, but like everyone is for sure crying their eyes out at that. The Outsiders has like a lot of, death and heartbreak and violence. Even like Suffs people are, tortured and imprisoned, and Lempicka, she really goes through it. Like the Heart of Rock and Roll might be kind of like the balm that everyone needs this season. So maybe we shouldn't count it out in some of these categories. It could be, the out of left field candidate that no one saw coming.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should move on. We've covered all the musicals. Let's dive into hopefully what is easier for us. I think it'll be a little bit easier for us, which is the plays.
Yeah.
uh, Best play. I have Stereophonic, Mary Jane, Prayer for the French Republic, Jaja's African Hair Braiding, and Patriots.
Okay.
Does that line up with you?
Pretty close. And I know I have to make a change, and I think you're going to talk me into something. So I have Stereophonic out front as well. I have Mary Jane. I have Prayer for the French Republic. I have Patriots. I have Mother Play in fifth, and I think I want to swap it for Zsa Zsa's African hair braiding. Um, which would be incredible that MTC would potentially have. Is that three best play
Yeah.
nominees? If they get all three in, I mean, that would be a staggering achievement. I do just think, it's a debate of like recency bias with Mother Play. They just saw this play, in the past week or two, versus Zsa Zsa's, which was so early in the season, but so brilliantly received. So that's the only one I'm questioning is, I think Mother Play, Jessica Lange's going to get in. Many of the actors, of the three are going to get in.
Hmm.
Is it Miss Best Play potentially?
Yeah, I I do think best play is down to six candidates for five slots. So the question becomes who's going to miss. Unless there's a tie, let's hope for a tie. But I can't predict this category without Jaja's. I think it's such an incredible script. The cast was amazing. Way they created that world was amazing. And I've spoken to a lot of people who are very, very passionate about this show. And like as you said, MTC really killed it this year on
Right.
Broadway. Like like an incredible, incredible season. So I feel very strongly about JoJo's getting in. I really don't care that it's closed. The one that I think is battling with Mother Play to get in is Patriots.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, I think I think Patriots feels a bit more like many of his scripts do. They lead with intellect more than emotion, at least how I feel. And so while I really loved Patriots and was engaged the whole time, if there's a deciding factor in the end, like that could tip it to another play if people don't feel as emotionally engaged with it. But I've chosen Patriots anyway because I think it just feels so epic and very important for right now. It feels like it has so many pieces, like other pieces that will get in. Like I can definitely see it getting in for director. I can see it scoring two acting nominations. I can see it scoring design nominations. So then logic would say it does get into best play as well. Mother Play, I feel like most of the reviews varied, but I think basically everyone was unanimous in praising the performances and felt fine about the script, didn't fall head over heels in love with the script. Um, but it is Paula Vogel, so you never know.
Yeah. That's the thing. Is it that they are going to want to support Paula Vogel more than Peter Morgan, who I don't think the audience got in for best play. Now that won for Helen Mirren for actress, and didn't get into best play. I think overall Patriots is a stronger show than the audience was. I mean, just in terms of execution,
Hmm.
concept, it's bigger, it's more kind of involved. So I don't think it's an exact one-to-one comparison. But I also don't want to underestimate Paula Vogel. So I do think this is actually, now that we're talking about it, a much more challenging decision about do I cut Mother Play or Patriots for Zsa Zsa's. I don't have a strong feeling yet.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have cut Jaja's African hair braiding because it's closed. It premiered a while ago, and I think it has a very the nomination threshold for it is probably smaller than the other plays. We'll talk about acting and stuff in a minute, but like there is a very real possibility that it gets in here and no other nominations. So I think that's probably what is giving people pause because they're not putting it in other places. But I I think it's easily one of the top shows of the season. I just can't predict this category without it.
Yeah.
If we look at revival, play revival, we only have three slots here because there's only the five shows. So we have appropriate, for me, I have appropriate, Pearly Victorious, and Enemy of the People.
Yep.
Are
Same.
those the three you have? Yeah.
And I'm very confident in those. I mean, I think if anything, Doubt is potentially stronger than Uncle Vanya, of the two that are not in my top three. But of the top three, I feel really good about those top three.
Yeah, and I think it's because, Appropriate feels like one of the top shows this season. It's going to be very strong across the board. And it will allow, because it's never been on Broadway before, its previous life was off Broadway. So Brandon Jacobs Jenkins will be on the ballot as a nominee. So that is a, major feather in its cap here to throw it out front. And then Pearly Victorious is it hasn't been seen in forever. It felt like, even though it is a revival, felt like discovering something new. And I think kind of same with Enemy of the People. That's not, a play that is often revived, that we see very often and fe feels very timely. So I feel like people have more of a sense of discovery with those and excitement about those rather than Uncle Vanya, which um, for me just gives me PTSD flashbacks to acting studio and doing that all junior year, like literally Uncle Vanya all junior year, as most actors did. So it's like we know Uncle Vanya. It feels, and Doubt is kind of a more recent piece too. So it's like we know these pieces. Pearly Victorious and Enemy of the People are a little bit more exciting, and in shows that, productions that are very strongly reviewed.
And that'll be two nominations for Amy Herzog this year, with
Oh,
Enemy.
you're right. Yeah. Well, I think she's definitely going to do it.
Yeah, agreed.
Um, a similar thing where we have a small amount of people for the categories here. There's four slots for Best Actress in a Play, and I have Sarah Paulson, Appropriate, Rachel McAdams, Mary Jane, Jessica Lange, Mother Play, and Betsy Adam for Prayer for the French Republic. And I feel like we're going to be mostly matched up here.
Yeah, the only one I don't have is I have Amy Ryan in my last slot. I also have Sarah, Jessica, and Rachel McAdams. I don't feel terribly confident about that last slot. I do think, Amy got really good reviews for Doubt. She stepped into a very challenging situation. I mean, I don't know how much they factor in,
Yeah.
kind of offstage, narrative when they're deciding, but the fact that she stepped in for Tyne Daly with literally days until opening is just an incredible success story. So I could see her getting in, but I could also see Betsy getting in as well. So, what is the kind of tiebreaker for you there? Why Betsy over Amy?
Oh, I guess Betsy is like an actor's actor. She is not the most famous person in the lineup here. In the whole lineup of, the eight women who are eligible, she's probably the least famous person, but she has, I think, more plays under her belt than probably all of them combined. She's worked with everyone, and it's often not on Broadway, it's off Broadway or in regional markets, but she just she has that going for her. Plus, it's a performance that, even though Prayer for the French Republic closed a while back, I guess not that long. It ran till March, but I saw it back when it opened, so it feels longer. It still is something that sticks out in my mind. She's still like, if I'm thinking of the season, she's still at the forefront of it. There are moments that just still ring very loudly with me. I do think, kind of like Best Play, this lead actress category, there are five women fighting for four slots. It's unfortunate that this is the one acting category that's not going to have five nominations, because easily the top five are the top five. I think, we
Yeah.
can never truly count out Laurie Metcalf, so because she exists in a category of her own, oftentimes. But I feel like I would argue she was more supporting than lead in Grey House. I feel like Tatiana was really the main character there. So I do think the five women in our odds up front are the five, and it's just, unfortunately, one of them is going to miss out for a really amazing performance. I guess I'm just going with Amy Ryan, because despite her amazing story, I feel like the other plays are maybe getting like a little bit more attention than Doubt is. Excuse me. Let's look at lead actor in a play. This one thankfully has five slots due to a last minute decision to put two Uncle Vanya men up front. So I've grabbed one of those for my predictions. I have Michael Stuhlbarg in Patriots, Leslie Odom Jr. in Pearly Victorious, Jeremy Strong for Enemy of the People, Liev Schreiber for Doubt, and William Jackson Harper for Uncle Vanya.
Okay, we're pretty close. And I think, as we'll explain, you have an advantage on here, so I would be wise to listen to you. I have Jeremy Strong out front. I have Leslie Odom Jr. I have Michael Stuhlbarg for Patriots. I added Liev Schreiber recently, and I now that we have 5 slots, I put Steve Carell back in. Um, but I haven't seen Uncle Vanya yet. I'm not getting there before the nominations are announced. So I should rely on you who have seen Uncle to tell me which of the performers. I mean, the reviews are something of an indicator. I think they both did, respectably in the reviews of the show, even if reviewers, didn't love the production overall. But why William over Steve in your estimation?
Um, some of it is to do with the fact that I've always, again, I've spent too long studying Uncle Vanya for my taste, but I've always thought that Astrov and Yelena, I would have put Anika Noni Rose as lead actress. I always felt that they're the lead in the play. When I read it, it's always just like mostly about their story forming the heart of it, even though you could justify it as an ensemble piece, certainly. But I think William Jackson Harper has just kind of, I feel like he's the actor that most people are talking about after seeing it. When I talk to people, like he's the one that gets mentioned the most. He also had a primary trust this season off Broadway, and I think he even got stronger reviews for that. People really like that, and I guess that's kind of a thing to keep in mind is that Broadway doesn't exist just in a vacuum. It often is really about the entire theater scene here. So that definitely helps him out a lot. And I think there's, sometimes Broadway debuts can certainly get in, but I think they'll just be more inclined to give it to the person who's done a little bit more theater here in the city and has what I think is the bigger character and perhaps like more of an arc to his character to execute. So that's why I put William Jackson Harper in over Steve Carell. Um, and there is a world where they both get in. And again, if like Doubt is doesn't feel as like new and sexy as all these other shows, then maybe Liev Schreiber gets lost and both Steve Carell and William Jackson Harper get in.
Yeah,
Um, that's definitely a possibility.
yeah,
But again, it's kind of, I feel like minus a very outside chance that people just love Danny DeVito so much that they put him in, which is possible. I do think it's those 6 guys, again, like fighting for one too few slots here in the nomination lineup.
yeah,
Um, let's cover before we get to the actors, the featured actors, let's cover director.
yeah.
So I have Daniel Ockens, Stereophonic, Lila Neugebauer for Appropriate, Kenny Leon for Pearly Victorious, Rupert Gould for Patriots, and David Cromer for Prayer for the French Republic.
Okay, we are 5 for 5,
Yeah.
and in that order. Um, so I think the only one that we're not predicting that has a chance, a strong chance, is Sam Gold, if Enemy of the People is going to do really well. So that's my only hesitation. I do feel good about this 5, and I do think Stereophonic is probably out front for directing. I think it's a staggering achievement in directing, actually, in how, again,
Hmm.
talking about this earlier, just how kind of sneaky, like the way he kind of moves these characters around this chessboard without you really being aware of what's happening, is really incredibly well done. So I feel good about him being out front. I feel good about this 5. I'm a little bit wary of Sam Gold, who would be a worthy nominee, I think, but I just don't have room.
Yeah. I mean, Daniel Ocken and Lila will be I think, the
Yeah.
ones who could win. Stereophonic was like 3 hours and 15 minutes long. And when it ended, I was like, let's get it going again. I could sit through this again. It was great. Um, but I think the one I'm most nervous about is David Cromer.
Yeah.
Uh, again, kind of what I was talking about with the musical directors. I feel like Prayer for the French Republic has like not necessarily as obvious a concept to it maybe as some of the other people. So he's the one I would feel is most vulnerable. But I haven't removed him because I actually don't feel like Sam Gold is the only option, and that's why I haven't removed him because I think two women, Whitney White and Anne Kaufman, are
Mm.
both very strong here. And so I haven't been able to decide if I took David Cromer out, would I put in Sam Gold, Whitney White, or Anne Kaufman? Because I think Mary Jane has come in very strong at the end. Uh, I don't think it's only about Rachel McAdams' performance, which is also amazing, but it's an incredible script and really incredibly brought to life by Anne. So I think because many people hadn't seen this, she was much further down our odds for a long time, but she could really swoop in here as kind of like a no-brainer pick at the last second. And again, to my the judge's African hair braiding, people loved that show. I think Whitney White uh, is sort of someone who's like on the rise right now and is very responsible for creating the relationships and the dynamics on that stage that people resonated with so much. So I think those are, I don't really see anyone else being quite as competitive, but I have a feeling I'm going to get it wrong because I have a feeling that I like David Cromer is going to somehow miss despite how popular he is, but I just don't know who to replace him with. So I'm keeping him because I know if I take him out, I'll choose the wrong person. So I'm just keeping the five for now, but also keeping in mind that Sam Gold, Ann Kaufman, and Whitney White are quite strong here, and anyone could break in.
Good point.
Let's look at Oh God, let's look at featured actress in the play. These featured categories are nuts to me, but I
Yeah.
have Cara Young, Sarah Pigeon, Frances Benamou, Juliana Canfield, and Celia Keenan Bolger.
Okay. 4 for 5, so pretty good. I have Sarah Pigeon, Cara Young, Celia Keenan Bolger, Frances Benhamou, and I put in. We were just talking about this in our column. How many other people we could put in this category? I don't have Juliana Canfield, who I thought was terrific. I would love for her to get nominated. I have Quincy Tyler Bernstein,
Mm,
Stein. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing your name. Um, just because it's a Tony winning role and she's fabulous in it. Like that's that to me is a it, not to say it's undeniable, because I do think I'm potentially overestimating how well Dowd is going to do, considering I don't have it in Best Revival. And I have it getting 3 acting nominations, which gives me pause. But I just feel like, her performance plus the magnetism of the role, that is kind of being the tiebreaker amongst so many other people I want to put in here. It's we really need ties this year. I it might be like a cop out in terms of predictions, like, oh, they gave us more, room for error, but there's so many deserving folks in these categories. We need some ties.
Yeah, the three people I am, again, kind of like what we were just discussing. I haven't changed my lineup because I don't know who I would put in. I feel like the most vulnerable in my lineup are Juliana Canfield from Stereophonic and Celia Keenan Bolger from Mother Play. I feel really strong about Carrie Young, Sarah Pigeon, and Frances Benamou, and I think
Yeah.
like that's kind of I would not expect any of them to miss, frankly. But it's always hard to get multiple nominees. I think Sarah is more definitive than Juliana because she has a little bit more of a central storyline. So there's a chance Juliana doesn't get in. And I think Celia is really loved in this industry, but is also saddled with a ton of narration in this play. So people may feel like she doesn't have quite the dramatic highs and lows of Jim Parsons or Jessica Lange in Mother Play. So I'm considering Quincy Tyler Bernstein. I'm considering Natalie Gold from Appropriate, because again, if Appropriate is so strong, which it is, uh, she's kind of right there with the core group doing just as well as them. And then I don't know if this is wishful thinking on my part, but Zenzi Williams from Jaja's got a Drama League nomination. And I had already prepared myself for like okay, none of these incredible women from this cast are going to get nominated because it's very like even Stevens, right? But I was like, okay, if the Drama League is calling someone out, then maybe there's a shot. I know there's not any crossover with Tony voters there, but still in their lineup, like they managed to make room for one of those women when they didn't have to. So votes did unite behind a person, which is what I assumed wouldn't happen. So we'll see if I, in a last minute change, go with go out on a limb or not, or stick with the five I have. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'll just also flag because she's in last in the odds now because of the category change, but Anika Noni Rose is in this.
Right.
And I also think, I mean, these are maybe subtler performances, but to your point about the strength of Mary Jane, talk about a really terrific ensemble of performers. I don't know if any of the other kind of featured have enough material to break in a crowded year, but they just bring that play to life so beautifully. And they're all everybody except Rachel McAdams is playing two roles in that show.
Right.
They do different things.
Yeah, I would say if Mary Jane, if they do fall in love with that at the end, like we have Brenda Wheely here in the Prediction Center who has that last scene with Rachel McAdams as the monk in the hospital, which is really, really beautiful. So you do end the play like looking at those two women, like she is right there alongside Rachel McAdams. So I would say, that is a possibility. I think it is you're right, a really strong ensemble. David, it's the last category, and it's the category I really also don't know what to do with here because I find it to be very fluid. For featured actor in a play, I have Corey Stoll, Will Keane for Patriots, Michael Imperioli for An Enemy of the People, Will Brill for Stereophonic, and Jim Parsons for Mother Play.
Okay,
What say you, sir?
once again, 4 for 5, so pretty good. I have Will Keane, Corey Stoll, Michael Imperioli, Jim Parsons. I'm going for a different stereophonic gentleman, which is the problem because I think you could put in almost any of the five stereophonic gentlemen in this race. I have Eli Gelb
Mhm.
as Grover. I thought Tom Pasinka was fantastic in a really challenging part, and Will Brill is such a comedic highlight of that show. Kind of gives me like Annalie Ashford in You Can't Take It with You vibes, where maybe the piece is not like the focal point of the piece, but the standout comedic role. So I'm really challenged with those three actors on who to put in, and if more than one. I landed on Eli because I think Grover is kind of the heart of the show in many ways. But I get the prediction for Will Brill, so I don't know how I'm gonna decide between now and Tuesday how to lock in.
Stereophonic has completely messed up my entire thoughts around this category because I can't tell if I should just like dump everyone for a bunch of stereophonic people, or if I have it correct with Will Brill, or if there's a different person who's going to get in instead of him. I chose Will Brill because he's the one person in the cast who's not making their Broadway debut. He is a veteran of the Broadway community and the New York theater scene, and so he's worked with a lot of people. I think that could help him. He also has like the most acting in a way. He has a very physical character. He plays drunk on stage. What makes me hesitant is that I do think his story falls away a little bit in the later half of the show. It becomes a little bit more focused on the Sarah Pigeon and Tom Pasinka characters, I think. So his meatiest material is more at the start of the play, and that makes me a little nervous. Uh, but then I'm thinking, well, should I take him out or just like take out someone else and add a stereophonic person? Because I loved Eli Gelb and I'm want to put him in. I don't know that he does like really, he's very like all the performances are really natural in this play and very understated in a way, even though they're dealing with very high emotions. So he's not like the biggest, showiest role, I would say, but the audience totally falls for him. And that's what makes it hard. I don't know. Is there anyone other than Stereophonic? Like, let's say there's a world where like these guys all cancel themselves out because the votes aren't united around anyone. If that happened, is there anyone else down the list that could surprise?
Well, you flagged, so I'll let you speak to him. I'll brace too. You flagged Michael Esper for appropriate, and you can speak to why you flagged him when we had our column. And I'll just say too, just to a point you made earlier about William Jackson Harper, Caleb Eberhardt just got a nomination for the Drama League for The Comeuppance and An Enemy of the People. Uh,
Hmm.
that show is really, I mean, I think all of the energy is going to focus on Jeremy Strong performance. He's the central character, but Hofstad is, I think, the most devastating of the ensemble who eventually turn on, Jeremy Strong's character. I feel like that's the turn that is the most emotional for the audience, and he's really terrific in it. And if people saw The Comeuppance and love him, and they're going to nominate Enemy for revival, there's a universe in which maybe does Enemy get to? I don't know. I don't know if he gets in over Michael Imperioli, but that's just another name I'm kind of toying with right now. But talk to Michael Esper.
Well, I feel like Michael Esper, inappropriate. The story is these three siblings come to their, deceased father's plantation to settle his estate. Two of the siblings are being talked about constantly in this awards race, which is Sarah Paulson and Corey Stoll. For some reason, Michael Esper has been lower down in the odds the whole time, but he is just as huge a part of the play as those other two actors. I think maybe just because I would say Corey Stoll's part is larger than his. I think he has a little bit more material, and they're in the same category. But if there is a play, I think like appropriate would be more likely to snag two acting nominations in a category than Enemy of the People. I think this is one of like the most dominant shows this season, and I don't want to spoil appropriate because it's still playing in its commercial run for people. But Michael Esper has a lot of like really dark, messed up stuff to dig into, and is both really funny and endearing. And then you also go like, oh, why do I find him funny and endearing as you watch the play? So I think, and he's been in a lot of Broadway shows at this point. I think there's a chance for him. I don't, I just can't figure out again if these stereophonic guys are going to cancel each other out, paving the way for other people to like Michael Esper to come up into the category, or if we're just going to see like two or three stereophonic actors here.
I think it would feel wrong if only Sarah Pigeon got nominated, who's brilliant. I mean, that's not a negative comment towards her. I think she has a really good chance of winning, and she'd be such a great Tony winner for that. But it's such an ensemble show, and everybody in that ensemble is important and contributes. So I feel like there has to be a stereophonic man or two in this category. It just has to be.
I'll probably switch at the last moment to Eli Gelb and do something crazy that will not pan out, but we will all see on Tuesday, April 30th, when these nominations are announced, how right or awfully wrong we are. It could be a pretty rough year for predictions. But thank you so much, David, for trying to duke it out here and figure out what's going to happen. So stay tuned as nominations are announced this Tuesday.